Hi friends, it's Jess with Our Bipolar. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just a little bit about me. I have bipolar 1 and I was diagnosed 25 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. And today I have my friend Steph here. She has her own YouTube channel that you definitely want to check out. It's called Bipolar Person, and I'll also link it down in the description. And thank you so much for being here, Steph.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
Steph and I have done like a few videos together at this point.
Did we do two lives? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
And
were
just,
fun.
and we've talked outside of the YouTube world. And so
Yeah.
it's great to have her here. And just to get started, Steph, why don't you tell everyone about your diagnosis?
So I have bipolar 1 with the lovely extension of with psychotic features and mixed episodes. And I got that diagnosis around 7 years ago. So I lived the majority of my life not on medication. And I really, really suffered because of it. So now I'm on medication, things are amazing. But because of all the trauma that I've had thus far in my life, because I had, just because I had 4 severe psychotic episodes, which systematically dismantled my life each time because I had been misdiagnosed. I had been given the wrong medication. The healthcare system failed me over and over and over again. The stigma definitely played a role in it. But yeah, that's my diagnosis.
Yeah. And I just have the diagnosis bipolar 1, but I've never been given an updated diagnosis, but I also would be considered, with psychotic features and mixed episodes because all I have now are mixed episodes in terms of mania. And I've definitely had psychosis as well. It's been a while now, but especially in about the first 8 or so years of my diagnosis when I wasn't being medicated properly, I had a good bit of psychosis. So,
So I think the thing that most people like when people are looking for something about bipolar disorder online, it's because either there's somebody who is desperate to find information about a loved one or there's someone with bipolar. So I think that for this particular video, it would be really good to try to talk about from both angles of being a loved one and being the one with mania, having and experiencing the guilt and the shame, and then go into managing symptoms and stuff like that. What do you think?
yeah,
Like,
I think that's a great idea. And actually, like a few of my videos most recently have been, talking about it from the perspective of loved ones. Because I know, and Steph as well, like we also are close with people who have mental illness, bipolar, maybe other mental illnesses as well. So we kind of can see it from both sides.
yeah, it seems all my friends have mental illness. Not all of them, not all of them,
No, but
but they have the ones that don't have bipolar or um another serious mental illness, they will have a less, well, what they would call less severe mental illness. So like they'll have like maybe ADD or something like that, which is also a very severe diagnosis. But
Mhm. Well, I mean, for us, for people who have a mental illness, I find that I can relate to other people who have one, even if it's not the exact same thing. But the people who have bipolar, like you and me, like I so relate to, and I feel like I can just like fall in with and not have to explain a whole lot. And just like we understand each other kind of from the beginning.
yeah, like you don't feel judged. Like
Exactly.
I think as much as like we try to deny it, that we're okay with how everyone else looks at us, like deep down it's always like a factor. Like I don't care how secure in your skin you are with bipolar disorder. There's always going to be a moment where for me anyway, I feel like there's always going to be a moment where I think, well, God, they think of me this way. They think of me the way that I thought of people before I knew anything about mental illness.
And why wouldn't they? I mean, it almost it's not that they're purposely looking down on you or on me, but it's sort of we've been taught. We've been taught that way. And everything in the world is reinforcing it. Like all the media, everything on TV and the movies is all reinforcing that stigma. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get away from. I mean, even my husband, my husband Brian is a very understanding person. He does not have a serious mental illness, and we've been together 16 years, and I still have to try to explain it to him at times, like how I'm feeling. And when it comes down to it, I really can't explain it very well. Like I'm not able to give him the full experience
Yeah.
in any way.
Yeah. I think you're really good at identifying your symptoms. I'm barely learning how to identify my symptoms. Like I was maybe a little bit hypomanic a few last week because of the lack of sleep. And I was able to sleep and reset for the next day, but that's not something I ever noticed as being part of my mental illness. That's been happening like my whole life, but I never saw it as being a mental illness because you don't know, like you don't know when you're sick, even with hypomania, like you might feel a little, but you don't know. You just don't know. At least I don't anyway, until like after the fact.
No, I know what you mean. And sometimes whenever I think I'm pinpointing a symptom, like I think, I'm losing sleep or I'm being more talkative with friends. I mean, these are very minor things, right? Like any
Hmm.
other person would think nothing of it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm shopping a little bit more. Maybe I'm a little more irritable, things like that. And it's like I do check myself, and I probably like 9 times out of 10, it is not hypomania starting, but I still have to pretend like it is because that
Yeah.
one time, that's what it is. And so, yeah, I mean, so as much as you say like I'm good at pinpointing the symptoms, I think sometimes it's like a little bit overkill at this point, but I feel like I have to do that to just be really careful and make sure because I just can't go into mania. It's I mean, you know how it
Yeah.
is. Like
Yeah.
I just can't risk it. And but I still do things that I shouldn't be doing. Like I still like some nights I just want to stay up late, and some days I'm like drinking coffee and like having a lot of caffeine when I mean, not everyone is really sensitive to caffeine, but I am in terms of hypomania. So like I have to
So,
be.
but I think with like bipolar in general, your caffeine irritates you. It makes you more irritable.
It does.
They say that at the hospital that when like you're inpatient, they would never let us have caffeine because it made us worse. But maybe it's not everybody, but it's common among some mental illnesses, I think.
It is. I know people who have bipolar one and they have like a cup of coffee a day and they're fine with that. I couldn't do that, but some people can. Like maybe some people aren't quite as sensitive to certain things.
Yeah.
But it's like everyone's slightly different. And, I'm much more sensitive to stress, like feeling overwhelmed with stress. Like if I'm feeling overwhelmed for more than a few days, like a serious amount of overwhelm, I mean, that's a huge problem. And,
Yeah.
it's life. So sometimes you can't change what's going on around you.
Speaking of not being able to control what's around you, like with my situation currently, I told you that I have been back in IOP, intensive outpatient therapy, which I went back to because Jeff, my husband, was freaking out because I had a couple of weeks where I wasn't sleeping as much. I had gotten really sick. And when I started feeling better after I got sick, I just wasn't sleeping as much. I was waking up wide awake in at like 4 in the morning and not being able to go back to sleep. And so he got really worried. And so because and it's because he's traumatized, because our first year of marriage, I had a severe psychotic episode. This was prior to being diagnosed properly and not on medication. And I spent like a year wandering the street, which is very common for people who experience psychosis. Um, and it's not, well, I should say it's not uncommon for somebody who experiences psychosis to end up homeless or wandering the streets or talking to themselves, or standing on a street corner filthy and not making any sense. Like, that's not abnormal for someone who experiences psychosis. So our first year of marriage, I was in a very dangerous position. I was run over by a car. I don't know if I told you. Do you know about that, Jess?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I think, wait, was it your foot or were you actually run over? Like
No,
your whole,
no, I was in psychosis and I was walking through a parking garage, blacked out. And I don't know if they were a drunk driver or what, but they came from behind me and drove over my entire body, flattened me.
oh my God, no, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember it being that severe. Wow. So how did you survive that?
Um, by miracle,
Yeah.
I ended up with 7 broken ribs. I had a lacerated spleen. I had a broken shoulder. I have scars all over my body and my face. Like, I had a brainstem injury. So I've had to have a couple of surgeries to fix one of my eyes. Like,
Wow.
yeah, but but the worst part of it is that in the United States, for people experiencing mental health crises, there is not a successful route to help people in what position I was in. I had been wandering around the streets for like a couple of months, just not sleeping, just wandering around, walking. Maybe I'd get a few hours here or there. I would pass out walking because of all these horrible things that took place when I was in psychosis. He is completely traumatized because I was on the street in a very bad situation, and then when I was hit by the car, this is where the healthcare thing comes in. When I was hit by the car in the United States, there's no system that has been successful at helping people in my position. I was a threat to myself and others, but not in a way that's definable in order to commit me against my will,
Okay.
which is what needed to happen
Yeah.
in order for me to get better. So I was admitted to the hospital like that. And because I was in psychosis, I believe that all of the doctors and nurses were actors. And so I would not agree to have surgery on my lacerated spleen. And had my lacerated spleen ruptured, they would have had to perform emergency surgery and I could have died. So for that reason, they had me in ICU for 4 days, and I was so nasty to the nurses. I remember very little of it.
Jeff, he was your husband at this time. Could he step in?
Yeah, yeah, no, he could not. There was nothing he could do. He was powerless. So
Wow.
the law is changing in California, where a parent or a loved one can call for help for somebody that might be, on the street and not lucid enough to take care of themselves. And the law is changing to where they will be able to be committed, but they have to build all the long-term housing first, because that's what's needed. Like, for people who have severe psychotic episodes, like, you can't just like wake up one day and be okay. Like, you need like to taper out into reality, right? Like, do you
Yeah.
understand that? Like, because like for me, it was never like psychosis done, here I am. It was like psychosis is maybe 75% done. I'm starting to like kind of come around to like, I understand maybe 75% of reality, but then I have this fuzzy 25%, and it takes like a couple weeks for things to balance back out for me.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
mean, I've never had my psychosis, I don't think was as severe, but yeah, it did. There was a transitional period still, maybe not as long as yours.
yeah. But it was a symptom it was the symptom of anosognosia. It was the symptom of the delusions, that thinking the nurses and doctors were actors. It was the symptom that almost got me killed, because had I had my spleen ruptured and they were not able to be successful at this emergency surgery, and it put too much trauma on my body, that would have been the end of me. So I was very, very lucky. And that's a problem that while you get into a sticky area where you don't want to see like people taking advantage of other people and people being committed against their will, like they were in the 70s, thrown in these long-term care facilities that had no standard of care. You
Right.
don't want to see that. You don't want to see people who have mental illness who can be treated simply thrown in jail. And some of these are possible outcomes of making it into a system that certain people can get out of. Some of us just need to be hospitalized in order to be made stable and understand that we have symptoms, and our families feel so powerless. Like there was nothing my husband could do at all. Like there was nothing he could do. He could not force me to get surgery. He could not force me to stay home. He could not tell me stop hallucinating. He could not tell me you're having a delusion. He couldn't tell me any of that because I was in psychosis. and
He was
and
probably playing, like, you probably had delusions about him. I mean, it was probably
yeah, I did.
all
I did. My delusion about him was that he had a secret family with his ex,
mm,
and that this was something that a lot of people did in the world, and it was, I was in on some big secret about the world, the whole
right.
bipolar thing.
Yeah.
um,
But now,
but
so like fast forwarding to now, so Jeff is obviously still, he was traumatized as anyone
yeah,
would be. And so
yeah.
now I'm sure like you probably can't, you can't like, have like a bad night's sleep without him being worried.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard because I don't want to see him in pain. I've caused him enough pain. I've caused him tons of pain. Do not want to see him in pain. But I also feel like a patient, and
Hmm.
I don't like feeling like a patient in my marriage. So that part kind of sucks. But I said on my channel, I said, because of what I put him through, I will do whatever he says in regards to my mental health. Like
Yeah,
if
and in a way, maybe it's good. I mean, we have different experiences with our marriages because all of my really extreme symptoms happened before I met my husband, Brian. So he has actually never seen me, like, he's definitely never seen me in psychosis. He's really never seen me in like full blown mania, even. So he doesn't pay attention to my symptoms at all, which I feel like I would like a happy medium. Like
yeah,
maybe not to like Jeff's extent, but like someone sort of watching over a little more. I mean, Brian, I shouldn't say that. Brian does notice certain things. He notices if I'm getting really irritable or if I am just doing a lot more, or like there are some, or if I've had like if I'd been losing sleep for more than a few nights in a row, like he would notice that and probably say
yeah,
something. I don't know. It would be hard for me to be in your situation.
yeah. But I did, I asked him, what can I do to help you feel better about for me not sleeping as much, for him to worry about me less. And so he said, if you would keep a schedule. And he said, if you would take better care of yourself. So I switched to decaf. I really did that.
You really did?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But I did drink a little bit of coffee yesterday because I had taken my cold brew over to Tiffany's and gave it to her. And when I went over there and she admitted that she had relapsed, I'm like, where's the coffee? So I did, but a group this morning I had decaf. So because I thought to myself, I am being so selfish. I love coffee. I love getting high off coffee, but I am hurting someone because I know it makes me anxious. I know it makes me irritable. I know it makes my temper be uncontrollable to where, if I'm not on caffeine, it's not like that. I'm way more calm. And so that's a good thing that I did. But in regards to him saying about the schedule, so what I did was I ordered a giant calendar. So I'm going to put it on the wall and write out my schedule on there,
Mhm.
uh, which, I think really helps our relationship to be able to ask, well, what can I do to make you more comfortable? And, one of the things was to go back to outpatient. So I went back to outpatient, but I'm really excited about the calendar because I think I'm going to get a lot more done.
Yeah, I feel like I should do. We have a calendar, like a family calendar, but like I
Hmm.
don't put my own like little things on it. Like I don't I need
Yeah.
something that's just for me. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited because um we were living in our lives and never being able to save money. And then we read this book by this guy, Gordon Ramsay, and he talks about having a budget. So we've had a budget and we've actually been able to save money. So my thinking is with regards to the calendar, I would not accomplish my goals because I don't have anyone to answer to except for myself. I would get depressed. I wouldn't be able to manage my time properly. So the hope is that now that I have a schedule, I'll be able to, be like, okay, I do this from this time. And it also creates structure for people with mental illness to have a schedule, and
Hmm.
consistency and redundancy is helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Routine
but
is so helpful. Like if I'm off my routine, I just feel off. And yeah, it like the last 2 days I haven't been able to walk my dog in the morning, and that's something I do almost every morning. And just that alone is bugging me. There were like reasons I couldn't do it. Like I really couldn't, but yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, I'm doing everything I can to do my part in the relationship and make up for the fact that well, I can never make up for the fact, but make sure I never cause him that much pain again by taking care of myself, and understand that he even goes so deep as to me taking something like coffee. That's I
Hmm.
was just thinking about it like, oh, it's coffee, I need to quit. I wasn't thinking about it like you really do get more irritable when you're on coffee. Like you're mean to your husband when you're on coffee. Why are you still doing it? Like it's not fair. So that's why. But I'm not going to say I don't have my failures. Like I have days like and he was okay when we went to fast food over the weekend, and he was okay. He was okay letting me have a cold brew. But
Well, you still have to, I mean, yeah, you're not going to be perfect. No one is going to be perfect, but just the fact that you're making that effort, I'm sure he
yeah.
really appreciates. And I mean, how long have you been together like since that time when you were, in psychosis and all of that happened early on?
So, the fact that we're still together is not, that's not typical of what I put my husband through, but we met when we were 21. We had known each other 19 years when we got married, and we had dated when we were 21, broke up, and then stayed in each other's lives. And then a little bit later in life became like best friends. And then we got married. And so because he knew all, and he had seen me in mania before, and because he knew, and he's also he reads a lot. So the first thing that he did was he started looking to books to try to help him deal with my
Mhm.
psychosis. And he read a book called I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help, and it really helped him like understand like more about like what I was experiencing. So, and you've seen Jess, it's
I
that
think
TED
I,
Talk.
yeah,
It's
who was the doctor? What was his name?
his name is Xavier Arm Armador. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correct,
No, I
but
think that's it. And I'll link it down in the description
yeah.
if people want to watch the TED Talk. Yeah, it's really eye-opening, especially for people who don't know a lot about
Mhm.
psychosis. I thought it
Yeah.
was really good.
Yeah, the demonstration that he does with the audience just really like is very powerful. So, yeah, I recommend that to anyone that is trying to understand somebody that they love. But what he did was he went to the books and he started reading and he got educated and he just like held out hope. He just didn't give up. But I mean, a lot of people do, especially when they haven't known somebody for 20 years, like they've only been a part of their life for like a couple years before they get married, and
Yeah.
then like, because I don't know if you know this, but I think divorce rates are somewhere around 80%
I heard
with some.
90. I
Oh,
heard
you heard that?
90 if there's one person in the relationship with bipolar, and then like just the regular divorce rate is around 40%.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really high. But I mean, I know you guys are married. I know other people, you know, who have bipolar who are married and going well. I mean, that's completely just based on my experience, but yeah, it can be done. Yeah, you have to find the right person, that's for sure.
Yeah. And
And it sounds like you did.
yeah, and he had to really he had to really learn about bipolar disorder and try to understand it. And he's really helping me learn identifying my symptoms. Like the other day I told him, like, I'm still learning to identify what's a symptom and what is me, and like, and he's like, well, me too. And I'm like, okay, well, I took that, and then the next day, which was yesterday morning, when I was in a really bad mood, I was cutting him off, yelling at him, and he was starting to bicker, because we bicker, like we're a couple, we
You're
do that.
married. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm symptomatic, and he's like, say no more. And I had never done that before,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was just able to communicate my feelings, and he was able to respect that and understand that that I was feeling symptoms. Like, so we really have to work on our relationship. But he was able to get past all the things that I did to him, because I terrified him. I was wandering the street. I was with other people in a way that you're not supposed to be if you're married. And it was all stemming from psychosis and other symptoms of bipolar disorder. It is not something that I would ever do in my entire life, and he knows that. But he had to get past a lot of things and forgive a lot of things. And a lot of people, I think there's a misconception that people with bipolar disorder do not take responsibility for their actions. And I just think that it couldn't be further from the truth.
No, I
There
so
are
agree.
there are a few people out there who maybe are unable to take accountability for their actions, as there are with the normal population. But in general, most people with bipolar are extremely empathetic, feel guilty. Guilt is a symptom. Shame is a symptom. So we're very aware of how much pain we cause other people. It's just very difficult for us to articulate or even understand ourselves.
I think that's definitely true. And I think there's a different kind of guilt that comes along with doing something and, you know, you being symptomatic at the time. So it's not something you would normally do. And that guilt is so crushing because you realize that is not even me. Like, that's
Yeah.
not how I behave on a normal basis. And to know that you did that to someone is like so almost like shocking. Like, how could
Yeah.
that have even happened? So, yeah, the guilt can be really a lot to deal with. I know that no matter if I'm being an asshole and it's because of bipolar or it's just because of me and I'm having a bad day, like I'm still responsible for both of
Yeah.
those things. Like
Yeah.
that's unfortunately I have it all comes down to me and like you know they say like mental illness is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Hmm.
And that's true, you know, and it can take a while to really accept it, but that's what happens. But it sounds like you and Jeff really have like this like true love. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing how much can be forgiven for, you know, in the right circumstances by the right person if they really understand what you're
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah. But it was extremely painful for him. He started eating a lot. He put on a bunch of weight. He was so upset. He was doing unhealthy behaviors. He experienced extreme depression. He went to a doctor. A doctor offered to give him medication because it was taking a physical toll on him. It was taking a mental toll on him. I found out he was reading, oh, I can't even say it. It's like, but I found out he was reading my diary while I was like, yeah, like because I wasn't even like, it wasn't necessarily my diary. It was that I had decided like I was going to write a book about my life with bipolar disorder. It became too difficult, and that's why I started the vlog instead. But I do have a friend who wants to ghostwrite for me, so I may have a book someday soon.
You should. I would
Yeah,
love to read your book.
we've been talking about it for years. I'm just not quite sure how the whole thing works and how busy he is, and um
Yeah. But
But yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But I was writing a book, and I had written like several pages, and he would read that every night while I was out there.
but he was
Just
also probably trying to figure out a way to get you back, and maybe that was part of it, like
yeah,
reading it.
I don't know. I don't know if it made him feel closer to me or what. It was hard. It's hard for me to even like talk about how much I hurt him, because it's tragic, and we have no control over these things. They just happen, like
Hmm.
you can't like someone like Xavier was saying in the TED Talk. He's like, you can't tell someone, will you stop hallucinating?
Right.
Like you can't tell someone, will you stop hallucinating? But it's so the symptoms, and it's really hard for people to understand what are symptoms and what's a person too, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you are where you are now and you're helping so many people with your YouTube channel. I love your channel because on your channel there's such a community. I feel like there's such a community of people that, are in the comment section, and like I feel like you're really connecting with people and helping people, and I think that's amazing, and like you're the best person to do it. I mean, I have my channel, but I don't know. I look up to you and to your
Aw, thanks.
but before we end, like I don't want to is there anything else you want to say? Like it doesn't have to be about this topic, but just whatever.
The only thing that I want to say is just that, like, because I always try to say on my channel this, so I just think it's so important because a lot of people in my life were really hurt by a lot of the things that I did in mania. So what I try to tell everyone is that if you have someone you love and they're mania or psychosis and they're saying horrible things to you and they're being verbally abusive and they are accusing you of things you've never done, and they bring up something from the past, like they're these comments and this emotional response comes from a place that doesn't exist. It's typically coming from delusions, it's typically coming from past trauma, but there's no truth in the meanness, there's no truth in the intention. Like people
Mhm.
are delusional, like I thought my parents were trying to kill me at one point, so I was incredibly verbally abusive to them. And maybe I didn't even I obviously no, I didn't tell them like, I think you're trying to kill me. I was just horrible to them. Horrible.
Yeah.
So like I always try to remind families that it's not, don't take it personally. And also, if you're someone who does have mental illness, don't take it personally if people don't want to learn about mental illness. Sometimes parents don't want to learn about mental illness because they think it's their fault. They blame themselves for the trauma their child has experienced, or they just are unable to see it. But I think that, like as you mentioned, Jess, like the online community is pretty much what we have. Like we have to stick together. All of us with mental illness have to stick together. And the channel is about, it's not about me, like it's about the community and the people talking to each other. I'm just like kind of like a moderator, like here is a topic, discuss amongst yourself type of thing, like. But
Yeah.
I love connecting with people. Every time someone leaves a comment, it makes me feel less alone. Sometimes the comments are really, really hard because they're a family member who is just at a loss, and sometimes they'll talk about a relationship being at the end, and then I'll ask them, hey, how's it going, and they won't respond, and I know it's because they probably had to end the relationship.
Yeah.
So there's situations like that, and then there's people who will just stay together and love each other forever and ever, and be inseparable no matter what happens. And and there's families and friends of people, just like, so it's so amazing that like friends of people with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder or any other disorder go to the internet and look to find out what their friend's going through. I just think that's so beautiful. Like,
It
and the fact
is.
that and the fact that we can do that, like we should completely take advantage of it.
I
So yeah.
agree. And I love it. I love the online community. It wasn't around in my early days of having bipolar. So I definitely feel the love from it now, and I so appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
and that's why I love channels like yours. And yeah, we can get some tough comments. You're right.
Yeah.
But I just
Yeah.
try to do my best. Sometimes I have to wait a day or two before I can reply because I'm just like, what do I say here?
Yeah.
But, we do our best. And I'm just excited for, what you're going to put out every week.
Yeah, yeah, me
So,
too. Hopefully, I didn't realize, I really didn't realize, because like I said, I'm still getting used to what's a symptom or not. And I really didn't realize how much depression I was in. Like, I just had no idea. But like, I'm sitting home, like, fiending for news all day long. Why? Because my life is too complicated to deal with. So let's worry about the whole rest of the world. You know what I
right.
mean? Like,
And I think
so I,
depression can be harder. Well, for me, it can be harder to notice. And then when I really get in it, it's not hard to notice. But yeah, when I first start dipping into it, it can be tough for me. Well, I think this
yeah,
is great. This is like a great conversation. We have to do this again. And
yeah.
everyone that came to my channel, please subscribe, like, comment, all the things if you want to. But
If you want to.
if you want to, go to Steph's channel, Bipolar Person, and definitely subscribe and watch all her videos. I know you'll love them. But thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.